Joining us now, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. And Mike, I've been trying to keep up on the scorecard of the transfer portal everywhere. Tony Perkins, who an Indiana guy, ending up at Missouri. You've got Connor Hickman at Cincinnati. Indiana picks up Miles Rice. It's like, what? Who's going where? You didn't enter the portal, did you?
I actually, technically, I guess I did. I transferred from Fishers, Indiana to Butler County, Pennsylvania. So I think I am. I think I did. Yes. But unfortunately, I didn't get any NIL out of it.
Man, that's the whole deal, man, right there. It's a seller's market right now too.
Oh my goodness. It is, it's interesting to me how many times I come across on Twitter that this is ruining college basketball. When coaches have been doing this for decades, for many, many multiples more than the players are doing. Look, I think one of the things that teams are failing miserably at is retention, because you can pay your guy to stay just as easily as someone else can pay them to move. And there's two things. One, a lot of the players that are moving are not considered to be entirely desirable by their programs. That's one option. And the second option is the program in question is doing a horrible job of valuing the player relative to the open market. Or I guess there's a third. One is they're doing a horrible job of generating the necessary NIL funds to make their program what it could be. Those are the three options. And I don't like immediate eligibility for the multiple time transfer, but there's nothing you can do about it because of what the courts have done. And again, this all goes back to the failed reign of Mark Emmert and what happened during his time as president of the NCAA, and how many times the NCAA had an opportunity to say, we got to get ahead of this. Let's make a plan. Let's plan for these various contingencies. Let's make sure we're ahead of it so that we can continue to do business in a reasonably functional process. And two, I like that. And two, we can deliver the best possible experience for the student athlete. They didn't do any of that. And I still go back to ground zero of this, which is, I shouldn't use that terminology, but I should go back to the very beginning of this, which is the O'Bannon suit is certified for trial, whatever verbiage they use in court system. They're going to trial. The attorneys representing the O'Bannon class approach the NCAA and say, look, we want to settle this. And they not only wanted the money, which they would have gotten some money, but also they wanted to try to work on for the future past athletes, some sort of compensation through video games and all that sort of stuff. And also for the current athletes, some sort of apparatus that worked better than what they were doing and that would work in the future when things started to change. And the NCAA, not only did they say no, Jim, they said no to the meeting. They never even heard what the O'Bannon class had to say about what they thought the future might look like. They had no interest. They thought they were going to win, and they got trounced again. And then in the Alston case, which was about educational expenses over and above room, board, tuition, books, and fees, and then cost of attendance, they fought against that. It was the worst administration in the history of, that's a good question for you. That'd be a great Twitter poll. Worst administration, the Emmert administration of the NCAA or the Larry Scott administration of the Pac-12. One of those two. There's your two choices. Which one are you voting for?
Well, I'd go with Mark Emmert immediately, just because of the larger ramifications affecting all of sports. Yes. Although they're probably not far off if you wanted to.
Probably not, because one of them doesn't exist any longer.
True, exactly.
Technically it exists, but it doesn't exist in any practical form.
No, and one of the players that Indiana has picked up,
Yep.
Rice. He becomes the last Pac-12 freshman of the year. So I guess he can put that on his wall. I was the final Pac-12 freshman of the year. But and it's a shame because of losing that tradition, because it matters. It matters. I don't live out on the West Coast, but it matters to those people. It matters to that area of the country. And it's like losing it's just something going away that there's no reason for it to have gone away. But will the NCAA go away at some time and turn into something else?
I can't say that it won't. I still think that NCAA has great utility. And I think one of the NCAA's problems in this regard, Jim, is that people don't understand what they are or what they do. They look at the NCAA as cops first, so to speak, a police force, an investigative force. That's not first for them. It's not, it's way down. It's in there, but it's not far. The first and foremost thing the NCAA does is run championships. That's what they do, and it's what they do best. It's the number one thing on their list because it's the number one generator of revenue via primarily the men's basketball tournament, but now increasingly the women's basketball tournament and other championships that ESPN pays for to televise. It has become the number one thing they do, and people don't look at that. They think anybody can do it, and they think anybody can do it well. And anytime anything goes wrong, people act like the people at the NCAA don't know what they're doing. Well, look how few hiccups there are in a 67-team men's basketball tournament. Or look at even relatively how few hiccups there are in the women's basketball tournament. Even though there are lots of complaints, and certainly the episode of 2021 was not the best circumstance. They failed there on the women's tournament. But that was an unusual circumstance. They had to create everything on the fly, and what they failed to do was go across the hall and say, "What are you doing for the men?" Okay, we'll do that. So we're all even. That's what they should have done. Or they should all been in the same room planning out the tournaments at the same time so that they did them equivalently. But in any case, they for the most part, they do a fabulous job. Why do you think the Women's College World Series is what it is now? The College World Series in Omaha, the soccer college cups, all of those events are what they are because the people at the NCAA really know how to do it. David Warlock, Dan Gavitt, so many terrific people that work at the NCAA, and everybody overlooks that because they haven't ever really been a great police force. Frankly, that's the least of my concerns relative to college athletics.
Yeah, it's just become a whole different ball of wax. I mean, it's this part of the year. It's not even really. It's not recruiting. It's more. I don't even know what the proper term to put on it. Recruiting is, well, it is recruiting, but it's more of who can sell. You've always been selling your university or selling your program, but now when it comes down to it, there's no way that the money does not speak louder than a lot of those other things.
I saw a tweet from I can't even remember one of the basketball accounts I follow who doesn't have a name, so I don't know who's behind it, but talked about what an official visit is like now. The athlete doesn't visit the campus and see all the, meet the fraternities or meet people in the academic element and all that sort of stuff. Well, I mean, frankly, whose fault is that, Jim? Is that the school's fault? The school is responding to what the request is. What do you want to see? I want to see how much money you're going to give me. Okay, that's what we'll tell you. Do you want to see the business building? I'm not so worried about that. Well, whose fault is that? And the other element of the tweet was sometimes the student isn't even involved. It's all agent. And whose fault is that? That is not the school's fault. That is the family's fault that they have made it into that. And if that's what they wanted to, and maybe fault isn't the right word. That's the family's decision. that's what they want, then fine. If that's what you want to get out of college athletics, then fine. That's if you want to get primarily to get paid, because this is the one chance you'll have to make a lot of money playing basketball. Because let's be honest, there are players that you have mentioned in this show, so I'm not going to, but there are players that you have mentioned in this show that will, when they finish, will play professionally, but not for a lot of money. You know, maybe not for a whole lot more than they would make, at least initially, not for a whole lot more than they'd make if they went and used their college degree on, I don't know, becoming a junior trainee at some business or something. But they'll play because it's more fun than going and becoming a junior trainee in some business. So I don't blame athletes at this stage for using the leverage that they have to make more money when they'll probably never make this money again. I would blame them for wasting the money that they make, because if you're going to do this when you're a college student and get yourself ahead of the game, put it in a 401k or an IRA or an investment account and live off it, have it supplement your income for the rest of your life or for when you retire. That I would say you better be doing. If you're making 600, what's the young man from Miami? What do he make? 800 grand when he transferred to Kansas
Nigel
State?
Pack.
Yeah, from Indy. If Nigel Pack doesn't put that money away or most of it and use it wisely, then that's on him. And that's a foolish decision. But if you are doing that to get ahead of the game so that when you leave college, that you're ahead in ways that most college students are behind, because rather than having that much money in the bank, they might owe a big, some portion of that money. I think that's great. I can't not think that's great. I don't know why so many people are bothered by it.
What is the I was getting ready to pull it up to look, because I know that like it was with Zach Edey from Canada, there are certain loopholes that they have to find to get the NIL money that they have to go through.
Yeah. When you're an international student, you're not allowed to work technically while you're an international student. I wrote a piece about this last year with a young man from San Diego State during when they were on their way into the Elite Eight. I wrote about his experience as an intern, and he was fairly well compensated as an intern, but he couldn't make nearly as much money as the point guard who could do, let's say, a commercial for a Subway shop or for a sandwich shop or something like that. He could do the center for that team could not do that because he was an international student. Zach Edey talked about that at the Final Four when he was presented one of his Player of the Year trophies, that he thinks that's a restriction that's probably unfair and probably ought to be loosened. I don't see any reason why a college student shouldn't be allowed to work to supplement their income or to help pay for their education, I should say, while they're here.
No, because if you were a medical student, you're probably allowed to work at the Subway or whatever you said.
Well, no, you're not. That's the whole point.
Really?
No, I mean that's
totally ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what restricts them, is that they're not allowed to be employed while they're an international student. They're allowed to do internships. That's why this was arranged, so that this young man's internship was both legitimately an internship from which he could learn about his major. He's a business major, and his internship was with some sort of property management company or real estate development company, something like that. And so he learned a lot about the business, but he also was a very well-paid intern. When I was an intern at a radio station, I didn't make anything. And when I was an intern at a newspaper, the summer before my senior year, I made minimum wage. So he was much better compensated than that. And that, like I said, I mean, I'm all for that. But the way that Oscar Tshiebwe had to get his NIL was for Kentucky to do a tour to the Bahamas, play some games down there, and he was able to do some things there to make money, because the NCAA can't prevent him from it, but the federal government can. And the same thing with Zach. When they went to Canada to play Alabama in Toronto, that was a way for Zach to help generate some NIL income when he was up there. So I think he probably did some things as well although I don't know this, I've never verified this, but I'd be surprised if he didn't do some things when he was with the Canada national team. He spent most of last summer with the Canada national team preparing for the World Cup, and he played for the World Cup team. He just didn't play a lot, but he was with them, and so I would imagine he did some things then as well, because he's not on U.S. soil and he is, by NCAA rules, eligible to make that sort of income.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.